Hi everyone, I'm Todd Sepulveda. I am the editor of Prepper Website and the host of the Prepper Website podcast.com. And this is my favorite article of the week. And so what I do is I grab an article from the week before that I read on the podcast, and I bring it into Facebook Live, talk a little bit about it. I don't reread it or anything like that. I mean, if you want to, you can go listen to that episode. It was actually episode 231, and so you can go check that out. Or, but what I do here is I just kind of talk a little bit and bounce off of that. Before I do that, I want to let you know that there's this great deal that's going on, and I want to share it with you because it's about to finish out. So, Survival Hacks sent me a ferro rod, and it comes in this box right here, and they sent it out to me to do a little review on it. And so I started doing the review on it and all that kind of stuff. And then they sent me a coupon code. And basically it knocks it down half price. And so the normal price is $19.99. And so when you put the coupon code in there, you get it for $9.99. And so that's only going to go on till the end of January, and then it's going off. And so a lot of people are taking advantage of it. And so I was going to talk about it at the last favorite article of the week that I did when I went online, and I continued to forget about it. But anyway, so I just kind of want to show it to you. So it's a 6-inch ferro rod, right? When you price these things, normally just this by itself is going to be about $15 to $19. It's 6 inches. It's pretty thick. I guess you can see that there. Pretty thick. But this one comes with about 4 or 5 feet of paracord here. It comes with a striker, and it has a flat edge over here with some rulers. It has a serrated edge. It has a hex key that you can turn, small nuts with, and then you can also use it as a can opener here. It comes with a small little waterproof tinder carrier, and it has cotton on the inside. I didn't have a lot of great, I didn't have a lot of great experience with this cotton, because on some of the videos that I watched people doing it, it's like they lit it and it was like a match. What I heard from other people is that you have to kind of break it up a little bit on the end, and when you do that, it'll catch a spark really, really quick. But anyway, so it's good for like 20,000 strikes, right? It works pretty good. I know it's dangerous. I'm being dangerous. But anyway, I think it's really worth it. So when you go to Amazon, and so I have the article in the description of the video, and if you go to edthatmatters.com, the coupon code is right in there. And so when you go to Amazon, when you check out, you put that coupon code in there, and then you wind up getting it for $9.99. I think it's a great deal. But again, that's only going to be it comes with this little whistle here that it's not any good, so I just took it off, and I'm not going to use it. But anyway, it's there. And then they also kind of had the paracord tied off with the whistle, and I didn't like that, because it could just easily come off. But anyway, so that's over at edthatmatters.com, and then it ends on the last day of January, right? So I just wanted to let you know that you can go check that out, and I think it's a great deal if you're in the market for a ferro rod. All right, let's go ahead and get started on the favorite article of the week. So the favorite article of the week comes from my good friend Gay Levy, who's blogging now at strategiclivingblog.net. And so I'm going to go ahead and go over there really quick. I'm sorry, it's strategiclivingblog.com. Let me go over there. Really nice website. It's nice and clean. She does a lot of she does a lot of articles on essential oils, and she does a lot of good stuff over there. This one was specifically on prepping. Now, Gay used to be the editor, the owner of Backdoor Survival, and she's since then retired. She talks a little bit about that here in this article. I linked to the article on in the Facebook description. So if you want to go check that out, you can go check that out. But it's really great information over there. And she's just, as she feels led to put out an article, she is doing it. I think it's really good stuff over there. So this article here, the reason it kind of piqued my interest is because I see this a lot. I hear this a lot. The article is entitled, If you are stressed about prepping, slow down and take a breather, right? I think there are a lot of stressed preppers out there. I think there's a lot of people out there who stress about preparedness, and especially if you're new and you come into preparedness and you haven't been after it for a while, and you start getting on some of the Facebook groups and pages, you start reading some of the articles, and you can really feel like you're behind the eight ball. It's like, man, these people are ready for World War III, and here I am, I've got a can of beans, right? And that can cause a whole lot of stress, but it doesn't have to. And I think that if you go into it causing stress, you're going to make a lot of bad mistakes, right? And so let me go back to the article here. She says, here's what I see over and over again. I normally don't read right off these articles, but I do want to read this part right here. Here's what I see over and over again. I see preppers, both new and experienced, getting overwhelmed. I see preppers stressed by the never-ending list of things they need to purchase in order to be fully prepared. I see preppers bogged down by the sheer pressure to learn off-grid and homesteading skills that they may never need. I see preppers spending every last penny of their budget on supplies and gear to the exclusion of taking a vacation or even treating themselves to a night at the movies. I see preppers feeling less than prepared because they do not have a huge garden, do not raise farm animals, and are interested in neither. All right. So I see that too. I mean, I agree with Gay on that. There's a lot of people out there. I mean, there's like expectations of preparedness, and like if you're not at this point, it's like, man, forget it. There's no hope for you. You're gonna die. You're gonna, you're not gonna survive. The Korean EMP is gonna get you, or the volcano is gonna get you, or this is gonna get you, and that's not what it's all about, And let me tell you something from experience. I get it. I totally understand it. I've been there before. When I first got into preparedness, I walked around, and it probably didn't help that I read a couple of the EMP books back to back to back. I mean, I was taking in prepper fiction like you wouldn't believe it. And so, I'm reading a Last Babylon. I'm reading Lights Out. Without oh my gosh, the other EMP, I can't even remember now. It's been so long ago. But I was reading all these dystopian prepper fiction novels, and I'm like, oh my gosh, all I was putting inside of my head was death and destruction in the end, and Tiatwaki, and a world without a rule of law, and the poop has hit the fan, and you're surviving, just by barely surviving, and all that kind of junk. And I remember going to work. And at that point I was an assistant principal, and I was walking through the halls, and I was walking in a daze, and just looking around like all these people are so unaware of how fragile we are. They're gonna die, These kids, these poor kids. I actually wrote an article for I can't remember which website it was. But I wrote an article on my worst fear. And my worst fear at that point was being an assistant principal and an EMP going off, and being at the school with all these kids and their parents working downtown, or not being able to come pick them up. And of course, some lived in the neighborhood, some would come pick them, or they were stay-at-home moms and stuff like that. But we would have a good portion of those kids. If the EMP went off like the EMP everyone says it was going to go off, then we would have been stuck there with all these kids. And then, of course, you have the teachers who aren't going to stay there when they realize what's going on. When it finally hits them, they're going to be leaving because they've got kids and they've got to make it home. So they've got to walk home. And so you had all these things, that would go through my head. And so that was like my worst nightmare, my worst prepper nightmare right there. And I went around going to the grocery store, and I looked around. I wasn't shopping for what I needed on my list. I was shopping for the end of the world. And that can lead to a lot of stress. That can lead to a lot of anxiety. That could, sleepless nights. And let me tell you, there's been people that I openly talk about preparedness, that I have talked to, and they straight out tell me, like, Todd, I can't talk to you about this. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to be thinking about it, because if I start thinking about it, I can't get my mind off of it. I can't stop thinking about it, and I'm going to lose sleep, and I'm not going to be any good. And there's people out there. And then here's the thing. It doesn't have to be. Because when people start prepping out of fear, that's the wrong thing. Now, a lot of the times, that's how people get into preparedness. So that's the way that people get into preparedness. That's how they start to, because they read an article, or maybe they're looking at what's going on, and this is clicking and this is clicking, and for whatever reason they Google something or they see something, and they start getting into preparedness, but it's out of fear. Because they don't want to die. They don't want it to be World War III and not have anything. And, maybe they read a book about, the end of the world, or what it's like, and people, eating other people or whatever, So a lot of people will prepare out of fear, and that's really not the reason to prepare. That's not where you need to stay. If you've entered preparedness out of fear, I totally get it, because I was there. But you need to very quickly you need to transition from there into some of the other things that I'm going to talk about here, really in this video. And so this is the thing that I want you to think about. So we're transitioning out of fear. We're transitioning out of being stressed out and being anxiety filled, and we're thinking, in different ways. Now, one of the things that you always hear people talk about when they talk about preparedness is that it's just common sense. Our grandparents, or depending on how old you are when you're listening to this video here, maybe it was your great grandparents, right? You'll say it was just common sense to them. They would look at us and look at our food pantries and say, "What's the big deal? Well, you're calling yourself a prepper? That's just the way we live, right? Oh, you got some chickens? Everybody has chickens, right? You've got a garden? Everybody has a garden. You're preparing for the winter? Everybody prepares for the winter, because that's when things, things don't grow." And so they would look at us and say, "Man, that's just common sense." And so you hear that. So one of the ways to move out of this idea that preparedness is just so stressful and anxiety is like, man, this is common sense. Just like it's common sense that you do a lot of the things, Like, hey, I wash my clothes. It's common sense. I need to have clean clothes, right? It's common sense. My kid is sick. I give him some medicine. That's just common sense. It's common sense. The control is not turning on, right? So I realize that, I don't freak out about that. I go get some batteries and I change it out, and all of a sudden it starts working again. It's just common sense. And so when you get to that idea that prepping is just about being, and even if you don't want to use the word prepping, I know there's people that talk about, I don't use the word prepping, self-reliant, or just whatever term you want to use. Don't be stressed out about it. Don't live in fear. It's just common sense. You're just doing what is right, And one of the things that I always say is point to some of the things that have been happening recently. The fires, in California, the mudslides in California. You've had hurricanes, here in Houston, and we've had Harvey, and you had, that has opened up a lot of people's eyes. You had hurricanes in Puerto Rico and Florida, and you have, ice and people being shut down in the blizzard, over on the East Coast. And you just like, hey, doesn't it just make sense that you're not running to the store at the very last minute and fighting all the other people there in line, trying to get some green beans or some hominy, right? That's like the last thing that's always left on the shelf. Hominy, right? And you just, you're like, oh, I'm going to grab some hominy because at least I'll have something to eat. And doesn't it just make common sense? It's just common sense that you don't live like that. You just have a little bit of, something put back so that you don't have to live like that. So it's common sense, right? Another thing is that when you prepare, you're preparing and you're living this life of preparedness, self-reliance whatever you want to call it, is because you want to make sure that your family is taken care of. Now, we do that in a lot of different ways already. We make sure that we have fire alarms in our hallways, or maybe next to our kids' rooms. We make sure that we have maybe a carbon monoxide detector. We teach them not to run out into the street. Maybe even we have insurance, right? We have health insurance because if they get sick, well, it's just common sense that we want to be able to protect them. We want to be able to take them to the doctor. Or maybe you have life insurance because if for whatever reason you pass away or you die, you want them taken care of. There's a lot of things that we do already to protect our family and to make sure that they have a good life. And when you're preparing, you're not doing it out of stress. You're not doing it out of fear. None of that. That doesn't work. You're doing it to protect your family and to make sure that they can have a good life. And can you imagine? Can you imagine what a parent is like right now in Venezuela, who is their kids are hungry and they're not able to give them the food that they really need. I mean, people are malnourished right now. They're starving in Venezuela, a place where they should not, a tropical climate where they could grow anything, and they're dying. That's crazy to think about that. Can you imagine being a parent and knowing that your child is going out doing ungodly things just for a little bit of money to be able to go buy some things at the grocery store? That's what's happening. And so when we think about those kinds of things, it's like, have some food. You think the people in Venezuela, if you could go to them and talk to them right now and say, hey, would you have done things differently maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, maybe, 6 months ago? Would you do things differently? Every single person would say, oh yeah, we would do things a whole lot different. Because they want to make sure that they can give their family the best life that they can give. And so that's what part of it's all about. That's why we prepare, not out of fear, not because the EMP is coming, not because North Korea is coming, or Russia's coming, or China's coming, oh my, not because of the sun's going out or the super volcanoes blowing up. We just want to give our kids, we want to give our family, we're going to give our spouses the best life that they can possibly have. And so we prep because of that, right? Another thing about preparedness, and one of the ways that we can make sure that we don't stress out about it, is that we just incorporate it into our everyday life. It's just, food. You eat food every single day. Why can't you incorporate your food pantry into your everyday life? It's just part of it. It's just, hey, that's the way we live. We have a big pantry. I remember talking with some pastor friends that we went out to dinner one time, and they kind of found out that I was a prepper, and we were talking, and I said, yeah, I even have some chickens in my backyard. Here I am. I live in suburbia in Houston suburbs or whatever, and cookie cutter homes and all that kind of stuff. But I've got some chickens in the back. And she said, you know what? That doesn't seem odd to me at all. That's just normal to me. And she grew up on a farm. That was normal for. it was normal to hear the chickens clucking and to go out and to get eggs, and that's just the way it was. And so it wasn't a big deal when she heard people would have two chickens in their backyard. And so you just kind of incorporate it into our lives, and it's just part of what we do. We stock up our food pantry. We make sure that we don't go into debt. We make sure that, we have a little bit of stockpile in medicines, and we make sure that, we have some extra whatever, and we just incorporate, learning about what's going on and what's happening in the world. We go out, and you always hear about that, incorporate camping into your vacation, and you can do some preparedness skills out there. I mean, how many people go out and they camp right now and they're not preppers? They just like camping, right? There's families. I know people right now that they go camping, and they are not into preparedness. They are not preppers, anything like that. You brought that up. They're like, oh, crazy kook preppers or whatever, but they have skills because they've gone camping. Now, why can't we do that? I mean, that would just be part of it. You're not stressed out. You're going out and having some fun. You're incorporating it into your life, incorporating it, doing that. And that's, you start to do that and you don't stress. Those are ways that we can get into preparedness, and we can make sure that we're living the prepared life and we don't stress. I want to go back to the article because there's a couple of things here that I kind of wanted to point out here towards the end. Let me see here. I love this right here. I'm going to go ahead and read this one. She goes, "The last time I checked, there is no prepper police that is going to grade you and send you to the principal's office if you take some time off to goof off. There is no bounty hunter that is going to come after you and shame you into doing more. As a matter of fact, I now consider this prep just a little each day stuff to be pure baloney." Now, I think when I did this article on the podcast, I don't agree with the prepper each day baloney. I'm not saying that you need to do something every day, like you need to do a new skill or something like that. And I think maybe that's kind of what she's talking about in that article, is like you don't have to, do something big preparedness related every single day. I think, again, incorporate into your life. Preparedness is just part of life, is just what you do, right? It's just like before I go to bed, I make sure I make the rounds of my house. I make sure that all the doors are locked. The front door, the back door, the garage door. I make sure, the lights are turned off. That's just part of my everyday life. And when you start living that way, it's just part of your life, It's just normal. But I love what she was talking about there, that there's no prepper police. There's nobody that's going to come and is going to, check your preps and check your inventory and say, oh my gosh, this week you're falling down on the job, right? No, that's not going to happen at all. So you can take a day off. You can feel comfortable at that. And that's one reason why I started the Prepper Website Facebook group, is because not the page, but the group. And because I saw some other pages out there where people would get on and they just start ripping. You'd have a new prepper that would come into preparedness and they'd ask a question, and then people would just rip them. Man, and I hated that. I felt so bad for these people because they would do that. And I'm like, you know what? When I started the podcast, I started the Facebook group. I'm like, I don't want this Facebook group to be like that at all. In fact, if anyone does that, they're going to get kicked out, because I don't want that. I want people to be able to come and to learn and to experience that, because there are people that are, that there are people, who are eating Cheetos, drinking Mountain Dew in their parents' basement, telling everybody all their preparedness things, and they've never done anything in the world. They don't get off their couch. But they're prepper commandos from the basement, sitting in their underwear, drinking Mountain Dew and eating Cheetos, and that's how they do things. And they don't know anything from anything. They couldn't start a fire if you gave them gasoline and matches, right? So I'm just going off on that because I feel so passionate about wanting to be able to. That's what I do. Prepper Website, the podcast. Even the reason why I'm doing this, like I don't make money from doing this. I want to just help people to be better prepared. And so you can start small. You can start adding. You don't have to be ready for the EMP tomorrow, right? You can start small. You can build your. In fact, I started a series on Ed That Matters called "Survival for the Common Man" to really approach preparedness from those standpoints. And so hopefully that helps you out a little bit today. Hopefully you are not a stressed out prepper. You're not, you're anxiety filled. And I encourage you to go over to Gay's article and read it, and continue going over to her website. She always has some good stuff. In fact, if you are, you want to do things, organically, and you want to make sure that you're not putting a bunch of pharmaceutical things into you, and you want to know how to do things with the essential oils. She does some great stuff over there, so you got to go check that out. All right, guys, that's it for the favorite article of the week. Thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great week. God bless. Peace.